By day, Lisa Land is a nurse practitioner at Kingman Pulmonary Associates. After hours, she puts on a cape and becomes a superhero endurance athlete. In March of this year, Liv Cycling flew Lisa and her teammates, the Liv Trail Squad, to Cape Town, South Africa to compete in the Absa Cape Epic mountain bike race. In 8 days of intense cycling, Lisa and her riding partner, Kate, covered 409 miles and climbed more than 50,000 feet.
It really was honestly a vision by Liv Cycling. They wanted to create an amateur team to give them the opportunity to do something pretty amazing to empower women all over the world. And so their idea was to create the Trail Squad. And, at the time, they chose 6 women from all over the world. And they gave us the mentorship of 2 pro riders to be able to, pull some information from, to guide us and lead us, because obviously none of us were pro riders. And they entered us into the Absa Cape Epic, which, if you're familiar with that race, is one of the toughest mountain bike stage races in the world.
I'm TG Lafredo. This is Focus on Your Health. It's brought to you by Kingman Regional Medical Center in historic Kingman, Arizona. This week, Lisa Land joins me to discuss competing in the Absa Cape Epic. Of the 6 amateurs chosen, you were the only American.
Yes, I was. I was the only American. We had quite a variety of women, too, on our team.
That's a pretty special honor. Huh?
It was. I didn't think about that so much until I started with the whole training and realizing, that most of my teammates, Sandy and Anna, when we met them for the first time, when you're doing things social media, you don't realize how much of a language barrier there is, but we had quite a big language barrier in South Africa. Yeah. And then my partner, Kate, is from Australia, and it took me a while to...
Which is a language barrier, anyway.
Yes, it took some time for me to figure out what she was saying at times, but we spent a lot of time together, and I can read her pretty well now.
I said this was an 8-day race. It was 658 kilometers or 409 miles of riding. There were 1,300 cyclists, and you climbed over 50,000 feet.
We climbed out around 50,000 feet.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, we averaged around 5,000 to 6,500 feet a day. The mileage, the shortest day was our prologue day, which is 12 miles. And then
easy, right?
Yeah. Our longest day was 78 miles. Yeah. Really, but even our longest day wasn't the hardest day. There was a stage 5, the Queen stage.
Just brutal terrain,
brutal.
Right?
Yes, yeah. It was brutal.
And then what were the days like, the temperatures when you were there?
So, you know what? We got lucky because we would have cloud during the morning time, and usually cloud coverage for the most part. Some rain on most days. So I think we were maxed out in the 90s on most days, except for our time trial day. That was 24 miles. We climbed almost 5,000 feet that day, and it maxed out in triple digits. It was a little over 100 degrees. So that was the toughest day, but it was also the shortest day.
Yeah. Do you feel like you had some advantage you live here in the desert?
I thought I did.
Yeah. It didn't really feel like it at the time?
Yeah, I thought I did until that day came, and I think just from the previous days before, constant racing, and, I got sick and my team got sick, just struggling day in and day out. That day I did feel that heat. I did.
When we talked before your race, we covered what you were about to embark on, and there's one major oversight that I had, which was after each of those days of really difficult riding, you were camping out at night. And I didn't ask you about that. How did that figure in?
I thought honestly that it would be difficult for me, but at the end of the day, after you're done racing, that little tent, and we had a little pad in there, felt amazing.
Really?
Yeah, it was easily converted to be something comfortable. And I don't know, I slept great. I felt good when I slept in that tent. I didn't even notice it, I guess. I was so tired and so wore out that tent was quite relaxing.
I'm happy to hear that, because I feel like I'd rather climb 50,000 feet than sleep one night in a tent.
It wasn't bad. I don't know. It was not bad for me. I mean, maybe if you asked someone else, and their perception may have been different, but that tent was quite nice.
Yeah. So you arrived, you met the team, and you got you had a few days there to acclimate to the time change.
Yes.
Right. What was the first day of riding, or what was it like the night before? Was that a tough night to sleep?
The night before the race?
Yeah, was it tough to sleep that night?
It really wasn't. Yeah. I think it's because I got there a week ahead of time, and 4 days prior to the race even, we had done several training rides, had spent a lot of time with the girls, had already mentally prepped ourselves for what we were getting ready for. And I think the mental preparation and the training 8 months prior, I kind of was actually looking forward to getting it started, getting it going. And I slept quite well, I think, the day before. I didn't really get nervous or jittery until, we actually rolled off into the start. And,
really? When you were underway?
Yeah, when I was on the way.
Then you had to think about just how far ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then that counted. There you go. You got the prologue done and you got 7 more days. So I think that's when I started to get nervous. But you eventually get into the swing of things, your day-to-day activities and, your day-to-day agenda and kind of you get used to that process and you just kind of not go through the motions, but you know what to expect, and it takes away all that anxiety and tension. Then you're just in work mode, game mode.
I've heard it suggested that I'm trying to think of how to say it. We're at our physical peaks, maybe when we're 18 or 24 or something like that. When we get a little bit older, we're best suited to do some of those endurance races because it's so much of it. Certainly you have to be in great shape, but so much of it is a mental game,
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Mental tenacity plays a big part in any type of endurance event. That's something that I definitely learned. And I think when I was younger, starting my adventure or my journey for endurance events, I did let my mental block stop me, I'm tired or this hurts or my feet hurt or how much longer, you just kind of let those things creep into your brain and you let them take hold of your, what you're really capable of doing. You physically you're able to do more, but mentally you shut yourself down. So I noticed as I've gotten older and stuck with that endurance game that I've gotten better. And that's one thing my husband says. He says that you're mentally strong, so he feels like I can do anything because of my mental toughness. And it took me some time to actually realize that progression over the years doing endurance events, how I've grown in that way. Are
you aware of, like when you're riding, are you aware of little voices of doubt that pop up? And if so, do you have a certain kind of a technique where you move beyond that?
Yeah, actually, I do. So for the Cape Epic, I knew obviously there's a lot of training, a lot of distance. So for me, it was all in the training. I think it really boils down to, your training, whether or not you put yourself in a similar environment to prepare yourself mentally and physically for that on a race day. So I did do a lot of training. The Surbat Mountains, I climbed that mountain so many times. I could do it with my eyes closed now, I feel like, but, I do it just more than once. I would climb it 1, 2, sometimes 3 times. But that way, even though, during those training moments is where I felt like I had my most moments of weakness, where I was angry or I get frustrated or tired or, I'm so tired of doing this. It's a lot of things, just kind of felt like, you just kind of get beating yourself down. But honestly, during South Africa, I think my biggest moment of breakdown, and this is terrible, but was my very last day when I probably had like 3 or 4 miles to go.
Really?
On the last stage.
And
I broke down.
What happened?
Well, I just got tired of climbing. You want me to be honest?
But you were a 99% finished at
yes,
that point.
And that's the thing. That's where I say even, now of years of endurance racing, I'm not perfect at that. You still have a lot of growing to do, and it just takes maybe a little bit longer for you to hit that point. But if you can push past it, then it's amazing to really complete it and feel what you're really capable of doing.
Well, you did push past it. Of all the amateur teams,
yes,
you were the only one to finish.
Yes, Kate and I were the only amateur team to finish as a team.
Well, congratulations.
And it did. It took amazing teamwork. I mean, that very last day when I did break down crying, and because I broke down crying. Kate was back there behind me.
She yelled at you?
Encouraging. Basically, she told me to
get back on the bike.
Well, her words, she's from Australia, so they have their way of getting things across. But that's what I needed at that time,
Yeah.
And we knew that. We'd already learned that about each other. What do we need and when do we need it? Sometimes we need tough love. Sometimes we need, an ear or, a hug or something. And we had figured that out, from all the days of racing that we'd done together by that time, and it was perfect. I got to the top of that mountain, and we knew we were on the home stretch because we could see the Valdivia State and the finish line as we descended off the mountain. But it was just that one last climb, and I think mentally I was just struggling. I was just tired of feeling sick because I was starting to have the bouts of nausea come back. I don't know if I said this already, but we had my team and myself, we had gotten a really bad case of a viral gastritis, and we were struggling.
Well, before you left, I was asking you, because I was imagining trying to ride all that distance, and I was thinking I would be starving at the end of each riding day. And you said, no, really, my stomach is shriveled. I'm paraphrasing, but at the end of all that, it's hard for you to eat. And
you
said,
is.
that was your concern, was being able to take in enough, which blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But this became a much more complicated issue because you girls all got sick,
We
right?
did. We got sick. There were times, I got sick actually on the prologue. I started feeling really ill after the prologue, and I thought, oh man, maybe I just pushed too hard today or something, but it carried over into the next day because through the night I wasn't feeling well, frequent getting up in and out of that tent and going to the bathroom, and then the next morning I just felt terrible. I finished the first stage, and immediately when I finished, I had to run to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to put food in my mouth, but knowing that 10 to 15 minutes later, it was not going to stay there. And so, Kate and I didn't make great time that first day because as soon as we left an aid station, I was putting as much as I could because I knew I needed it. I had to pull over on the side, go out in the wilderness and relieve yourself. And, that in itself, I thought I was going to be demoralized by that. But at that time, I was like, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. And when I rolled across the finish line, we finished stage 1. I was so happy, but I immediately had to go to the medic tent, and at 102 fever, they were worried I was severely dehydrated, which turns out I wasn't. My renal function was great, but I forced so much fluids down, but I just could not keep anything down.
Your background in medicine proved helpful.
Yeah.
More than once out there, I'm sure.
It's a lot of force feeding myself, which feels like the worst thing ever, but
well, if everything were functioning fine, I think it would still be challenging to have enough nutrition and enough fluids out there in that setting. But having diarrhea.
Diarrhea, vomiting, it was all there.
Yeah. It's amazing that you were able to just sustain yourself, to just keep in enough to.
Yeah.
Right?
I still think about that. I'm really not sure how I did that, to be honest with you, because I just think that's where that whole mental tenacity comes into play. As long as you know what you need to do and you can force yourself to do that. And it came to you with training, knowing that I need to put my, drink this and eat this at certain times. And I also had Kate. Kate was, knew I wasn't feeling well. So she would always remind me too, so it helped to have her too to remind me. But making sure I was diligent in that process, no matter how I felt, helped me get across the finish line, but also helped me continue consecutively finishing, and it took out some of our girls, and it even took out some of the pro racers, and it wasn't a pretty thing, but we made it work and we made it happen. And those days when I wasn't feeling well, Kate was pulling me, and the days that Kate wasn't feeling well, I was pulling her.
She took her turn as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She had her day too, and we just supported each other, and that's really what the Cape Epic is about, is you're supporting your teammate. You've got to start with your teammate, you got to finish with your teammate. You can't leave your teammate behind. There was that 2-minute rule there. So it really is the ultimate team race, and you learn a lot about yourself being a rider, because usually as a racer, you're solo in racing when it comes to racing mountain bikes, or even endurance events like running. But this race, you had to do a lot for that other person, and for me, I had to rely a lot on my teammate to help pull me through those tough days. And I think that you just realize different things about yourself as an athlete and a competitor.
It's time for a quick break on Focus on Your Health. We'll be back in a moment for more with Lisa Land. Stick around. Support for the Arizona Community Radio Network is provided by Kingman Regional Medical Center. KRMC is pleased to welcome Victoria Herrera, physician assistant, to our team at the Spine and Sports Injury Clinic. Victoria provides care for patients with pain or injury to bones, muscles, and the spine. For more information or to schedule an appointment, call 263-3516. KRMC. Welcome back to Focus on Your Health. I'm TG Lafredo, and this week my guest is Lisa Land. She's a nurse practitioner at Kingman Pulmonary Associates, and she's also an endurance athlete. In March, she flew to Cape Town, South Africa, where she competed in the Absa Cape Epic mountain bike race. You did a ton of preparation. You were you had trained for 8 months leading up to this. Mm-hmm. So you went in, I would imagine you were very well prepared, but I wonder, after hundreds of miles and tens of thousands of feet, when you would wake up in the morning, were you sore? Were you okay?
I honestly thought I was going to be more sore each day that I woke up than I was, and I wasn't. But I think part of that has to do with Liv Cycling had a pretty strict, not strict, they weren't saying you got to do this, you got to do that, but they had an agenda for us after the race. We had a pretty dialed in process. As soon as you crossed the finish line, the Cape Epic staff handed you food and a protein shake. You had that. So then you go to a recovery tent, you cooled off. They were there wiping you with towels, cooling you off, making sure you got hydrated. And then we went to a massage every evening. Liv Cycling did not spare any resources on us and making sure that we were taken care of. So we got a massage, made sure that everything was packed up and ready to go the next day, had dinner, had our meetings, and kind of did a recap of the day. And I felt like, those massages really helped, but making sure that I got the nutrition afterwards too. Whether I could keep it down or not, it was important to get something in there.
The Cape Epic race was streamed online, and of course it was South Africa, so it was 9 hours difference or something. I don't even know what it was, but it was quite different. But I tend to be a night owl, so I watched each night at least a little bit before I fell asleep.
Awesome.
I watched, and each night I wondered, or I sort of imagined what it would have been like to be out there on that terrain. And I remember thinking I would love to do that for a couple of hours, not necessarily for 10 hours at a time, but for a couple of hours. It just looked like some amazing, incredible terrain.
It was beautiful, quite humbling, but beautiful. We did get to see a lot of it. There are times, everyone kept asking us if we saw any wildlife, which we didn't. I don't even know if I would have noticed if I did, but
you were the wildlife.
Yeah, I did not see any wildlife, but we got to see a lot of different terrain of the Western Cape. We got to ride through a lot of vineyards. That in itself was pretty amazing, and climb a lot of mountains. So. It's hard to put into words sometimes, the terrain and the beauty of the Western Cape, but it was absolutely a gorgeous place.
There were some moments in the broadcast that were just so sweet and so amazing where, the cyclists would come through and they would be speaking of the vineyards. There were some of the farmhands were out there cheering for the riders. One of the days ended at a school and there were children out there cheering, and there was a helicopter flying over the school, and you probably have seen some of this where the kids were moving. They had formed into a pattern of a bicycle, and they were moving in a way that made it look like the wheels were turning.
I did not see that, but that is
sweet.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was
that
fantastic.
Was probably one of the best moments too, is all the support we had. Because we went through several small little towns, and everyone knew that the Cape Epic was there, so there was a lot of support from the people of the town and the kids. They they were so funny. So they really like the nutrition that the bikers use. So they called it chocolate. So you would ride by and they'd be like, chocolate, and of course we're like, we're not giving you our chocolate. We need this. Yeah. But, that it's just, they're just so sweet. And sometimes, they would give you high fives, and that was some of the best moments too. It's just a great experience to have that kind of support everywhere you went on that. Every miles that we covered, we had support somewhere.
You told me that before you even began, when you first arrived, someone recognized you.
Oh, yes. So that was actually pretty dang awesome. So we did training rides, like I said before. We started the race. We had some training rides as a team. And one of the rides, we were climbing to the top of Table Mountain on our training ride, and we stopped to take a photo op. And this woman comes over to us, and she's like, "Are you guys the Trail Squad?" And we were like, "Well, yeah, we are," and she's a local there in South Africa, and she's like, "I've been following you guys, on social media, and I'm so happy I actually saw you. I knew it was you guys when you guys were coming up the mountain," because it made quite a presence. There's this, women, 8-10 women climbing Table Mountain, preparing for the Cape Epic. And as I think I've said, the Cape Epic in itself, the presence of women is so few. 9% of that whole entire race entry is women. That's it. So, we made quite a presence, and she was just like, "I'm so happy to meet all of you." And she knew our names, she knew our backgrounds, she knew the story of Liv Cycling, and it just touched us all in a way that, we were empowering all these people, and not just, women, but people everywhere. And it was quite an amazing feeling.
Well, and it is an incredible personal achievement, but that's also what you said was really part of the mission to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. To reach people and make them think. Well, the pitch is that you're ordinary women. You're not ordinary for taking on this kind of thing, but
we weren't ordinary after, maybe so, but I would say we were all quite ordinary before.
Yeah.
And we just
you did touch lives.
Yeah, we did. The stories we got from social media messages on my Instagram or my Facebook page from people who followed our story, and they were motivated by just the Trail Squad, the women that were there. It was pretty amazing. I even had this one gentleman come over and ask to take a picture with me at the race because he said, "My wife loves you. She loves following you, and she thinks you're amazing." And it just. And he was from Canada or something crazy, so it was just an amazing thing. I just can't even. Sometimes it is hard to put into words, so
yeah.
I apologize.
No, you're doing a great job. I shared our first radio interview with some friends and family members, and you don't even know these people, but they became part of your cheering section. We were trading emails during your race, and at one point when you were sick, as we know now, like, "I haven't heard from Lisa in 48 hours. I'm really worried about her." We were all pulling for you. I think to this kind of undertaking, it touches people, and those of us who maybe it's just a vicarious thrill for some of us. We're like, "Oh, I can't do that, but you can. We believe in you."
Yeah, I can see that, because I think I would, if I wasn't in the position I had the opportunity to be in, I would absolutely feel that same way.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, I think the goal was to empower people to take that leap and take that jump to, "I can't do that," to, "I'm going to give it a try."
Yeah.
Why not? Because, when they told us that it was the Cape Epic, to be truthfully honest, I wasn't quite sure what the Cape Epic was. I do remember seeing the Cape Epic logo several years ago on TV, and I'm thinking, gosh, those guys are crazy. Look at them. But then when it finally hit me that was the race they wanted us to do, I can tell you that my heart kind of sank to my stomach, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, can I do this? Is this really what they want us to do?" And those moments of are just self-doubt creep in, and I just thought, I already accepted. I'm gonna give it a go. Why not? Why not give it a try?
Yeah.
I would regret it if I didn't. So I did, and Kate and I were able to cross that finish line at Val d'Avis, and I just never thought that we would be doing that. But you just train, and you just go and give it the best you can, and just keep pedaling one pedal stroke at a time. And that's what we did, even in those days when we did not feel well. There was a day we crossed the finish line with only 30 minutes to spare before the time cut off. And that was a really rough day for the both of us. I think we both were emotional at that finish line, but we had a whole team waiting for us. I had my husband there, Kate had her family there, and just to be able to go on to the next day, it was just, it's hard to put into words.
It's an incredible achievement. I mentioned your cheering squad that you didn't know about. And I told them that I was coming in to do another interview with you. And so I said, hey, if anybody has any questions for Lisa, send them along.
Oh, awesome.
And I'll ask.
Okay.
So these are a few listener questions.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about how you sustained yourself in terms of food, gels, liquids. We touched on that a little bit. What else can you say?
So for me, I tried to keep with what I trained with, like goo, Roctane. So I tend to do well with liquids, and I also kept some dates on board because dates worked well for me. But I did that probably the prologue day, and then after that, I honestly, when we landed at aid stations, salted potato balls were my lifesaver. So those guys and pretzels saved me because those are very bland, and that, like I already mentioned before, I had a lot of gastro issues, so that Roctane goo just did not settle well with me. I was eventually able to go back to my normal nutrition later on in the stages, but I just kind of like, if you've ever done a triathlon or anything like that, sometimes you'll take a bunch of goo and squirt it in a water bottle and mix it with water, and that way you can just drink it straight from your water bottle, and that's how I tend to fuel myself on my long rides. But I just wasn't able to tolerate it in the beginning of the Cape, so I did stick to salted potatoes and pretzels. My partner Kate made a Vegemite. An Australian sandwich.
Classic, yeah.
Yes, she made that every morning for breakfast.
Did you have it? Did you try it?
No, that thing looked disgusting. I mean, no, I didn't, but I did learn what it was, and I watched her make it every morning. And, because our morning would start out, we'd get up, we'd go to breakfast, we'd have a decent breakfast, and then we'd get ready for our race start. But I did try to stick with my nutrition that I used during training.
It's no time to try anything new.
Exactly.
And
but then when I couldn't, I stuck with a lot of bland food items. So that was for me was salted potatoes and pretzels. And they did have these electrolyte tablets, so that they were also giving away at the aid stations that I lived off of too.
So there are aid stations along the way, and you can pull off and refill your water.
Yes, they were elaborate aid stations. They were very nice, very well stocked with food and support. They even had mechanics at every aid station, like full-blown mechanics. So when I crashed at that stage 4.
Oh, we should talk about that.
Oh,
you're just trying to slip that in there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I will wait.
No. Well, do tell. So you got some mechanical help that day because
I did. I crashed on stage 4. Somehow we're just going through some really quick, nice berms, and there was a really loose technical section, and my front tire washed out, and I just went OTB into a rock, and my hip kind of hit the rock more than my body. I didn't want to hit my face, it's all about the face.
Sure, yeah.
So my hip took the impact, but when I got up, I thought I felt good. A little pain in my hip, but what I noticed the most is that my front brake lever had been completely ripped off. So thankfully, we were only a couple miles from an aid station, and when I took it into the mechanic, they were able to replace that lever just like that.
Yeah.
Within a matter of minutes.
Did the pain in the hip, did it encumber you at all?
It did. It did. When you're racing, you have a lot of adrenaline going. And then I think when I stood there waiting even just for that short 5-10 minutes or so for them to fix that lever, I really felt that pain. And honestly, I couldn't walk normal for a little bit. It had a little bit of a gimp. It was easier for me to ride. So when I got back on my bike, it was a little bit better. But, oh man, I tell you that night at the massage, though, I was not doing so well. No rubbing of that hip. So, but it recovered well. No residual effects, and we're able to still get on to the next day.
I want to ask you about the creature comforts, the pain of when we talked our first time. You were talking about the importance of finding a bicycle that fits you well, and how that had been a challenge for you years past.
Right.
And Liv makes cycles for women, and they fit you well. You're about 5 feet tall, and so
on a good day.
If we stretch you out.
Yeah.
So it's a specific set of needs that you have. But here's what I'm getting at. You spend all those hours in the saddle. Things are rubbing, things are straining, things are chafing, without getting overly personal. But how did you hold up? How did that go?
Well, a lot of things come into play. Proper bike fit is the biggest thing. And then, having a proper seat. So what I learned for myself is because I am quite petite, I don't have very wide hips. I don't do well with the woman's saddle because it's a little bit wider in the base. And I don't have wide hips, so I don't really, I rub in the wrong places on that seat. So I had to switch my seat out to a men's seat, which is a little bit more narrow. Works very well for me. I learned that too during those long hours putting in during training. And then of course you chamois cream, having a good chamois cream that you have. I carried a little extra one in my back pocket that I had put in a like a little lip gloss vial, put extra in there, and then that way I could always reapply. But making sure you're taking care of that. I mean, because it can be detrimental. I mean, it can be enough when you're coming to an endurance event like that over days that it can be enough to take you out if you don't control that and keep control of it. So, and then immediately getting out of your chamois when you're done, and taking a shower and making sure you're staying on top of that.
Yeah.
And addressing any issues if there is a ravage in the wrong place. Hopefully you don't find that out when you're starting a race like the Cape Epic. You already figured that out by the time you started.
You would have, because of all the
Yes, and
miles.
I did. I learned a lot. I mean, that came with, the proper bike fit. I mean, that's one of the big reasons why I had my bike fitted for me. Most people don't typically fit their mountain bikes or go get them fitted. That's more for, your road bikes and triathlon bikes. But I did because, I'm a little bit weird in ways, and it helped me to get that done. And then the biggest game changer for me is just changing out my saddle, which really helped. And I didn't have a single issue at the Cape Epic.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So, you tested and tried, and that's how I knew it worked. I mean, I didn't have an issue. So.
Returning to listener questions, if you don't mind, here's one that's kind of fun. The rules say that tandem bikes are permitted. Did anyone ride a tandem bike? Or did any two ride a tandem bike? It would be impossible, right?
I saw no tandem bikes. None.
It would be impossible, yes?
Oh, you know what? I don't believe in saying the word impossible. I just think it would be very difficult.
Pretty close to it.
Yes. I think what I've read in the past is tandem bikes have attempted the Cape Epic, but none have been able to finish consistently within a time frame.
Okay.
And I think that's where they run into the trouble, is the time frame.
Yeah.
And then there are some pretty narrow and loose switchbacks that I would have been really nervous riding a tandem on. But if there ever is a tandem that finishes the Cape Epic, maybe there is.
Maybe that's your next stunt.
No.
Hey, Kate, I have an idea.
If there is going to be someone to do a tandem of the Cape Epic with, it probably would be Kate.
Yeah, that's very sweet. All right, so thinking about the terrain at the Cape Epic, of course there was a lot of up and down, but there were some stretches that were rather flat and rather fast, right? And most of these you were riding for the first time when you were actually out there on the course. Mm-hmm. So a listener is wondering about gearing, about the choices that you made, and the any kind of strategies you employed.
Well, my peak is set up with just a simple 1x11. None of our team had the SRAM Eagle, which would have been something that may have been an asset, but honestly, I had contemplated about whether I wanted to put that bigger back ring on my my back setup or not. So what I did is I actually contacted a Cape Epic finisher here in the States that I knew had completed last year and asked him what his setup for his bike was. And he said, if you're strong enough to climb anything out here, you're strong enough to climb anything at the Cape.
Anything being here in the Southwest.
Yes, because he did tell me too, the best training you can get for the Cape is here in the Southwest.
Wow,
Nevada, Arizona, because that's very similar to the terrain that you'll see at the Cape Epic. And he was absolutely right. He nailed it. I mean, we have a lot of, knobby heads out here. In Lake Havasu, we have a lot of loose, shaly rock terrain, very similar to that. So I felt from that perspective, I was very well prepared for the terrain. The climbing itself, some days were very technical. So, and sometimes you just had to walk. I mean, there were a lot of times you walked up these climbs. I mean, you're just too tired, and it didn't matter what gear you had it in, you weren't going to make it up that day. But yeah, I had a simple 1x11 on mine.
Got it. When you finished, what did they give you? I mean, did you get I think you deserve a finisher's medal that's like comparable to Flava Flav's clock.
So, well, when you finished, some of my teammates say that the finish was anticlimactic, but I guess it's because, we had done so much over the last 8 days. And then when we rolled across the finish line, there was, no doubt. There was a big crowd. There were tons of people. They're giving out champagne, they gave out flowers. Our team, this is our team, they had gotten us all flowers and champagne, and one of the girls ran over with the American flag so I could hold it up, and that in itself was amazing. But we came through the finish line, we handed off our bikes, and we walked across the stage, and these girls were giving us medals, and then we got our medals, got our hugs, got our congratulations, and then walked off that stage, and then we picked up our food bags.
And you're on your way.
Yeah, that's it. That was it, We met the rest of the team, right outside that our food bag sections where we got our food, and ate and relaxed and had our bikes washed. And at that time we had to pack our bikes in our bike packs. Yeah. So we had to do all that then too, So we finished the race and they pack up and get out.
I would expect fireworks and dancers and a UFO to land on the lawn. And
I think so. I think we all just kind of, we weren't quite sure what to expect at the finish, but kind of maybe we were expecting that. I don't know. It was a little anticlimactic. I agree to that perspective, but
I suppose the intangibles are, to turn to the serious now for a moment. When you think back on this, and by the way, I wanted to apologize because when on the first show, I think I described this whole thing as crazy. I think I used the word crazy like 11 times. But when you look back on this crazy adventure, what do you, and now that you've had, several months to debrief and think about it, what do you think? What do you see when you look back on that?
Well, I see a lot of strong women, to be honest with you. I don't see myself the same as I did before that race. There's a lot of doubt in what I could do as a person, as an athlete, but I felt like we all grew. Even the girls who weren't able to cross at Val d'Ivie, that they grew as women, and to hear their stories now afterwards, the things that they're accomplishing and what they're doing, just not by racing, but taking on new jobs, moving to different places because they've always wanted to do that. I think it's empowered us all as a team, and as women overall. I definitely feel like I can't give myself excuses to not try something now because of this.
Yeah, something much bigger than the physical accomplishment, which is big enough in its own right.
Right. And it's come to that point too where I don't ever tell myself that I can't do something, but I set these invisible barriers for myself that I don't even realize that I'm doing. And, finally when I broke past something like this at the Cape Epic, because like I said before, I was like, oh my gosh, are they crazy? They want us to do this race? In my mind, I just thought, okay, Lisa, you're just gonna give it your best shot. That's what you're gonna do. Don't say you can't do it. Just try. And that's what I did. And now I feel like, gosh, I can do this. I signed up for a half Ironman next year with the goal to do an Ironman.
I wanted to ask what your next trick is after all of this.
No. And then even now I'm like, whoa, gosh, why didn't you do that to yourself? But, it's because I feel like I have no excuses anymore.
You just love the suffering.
It's something. I felt like, I always told myself that I couldn't do that. And now after the Cape Epic, I feel like I owe it to myself to quit giving myself excuses and just freaking get out there and try. That's what I said before, and look where it got me. So, might as well just give it a go.
Have you stayed in touch with your partner, Kate?
Absolutely. Kate and I talk all the time.
Yeah.
We talk all the time. We actually would like to go for a visit. I know she's wanting to come down for a visit, and so Matt and I are like to go visit her too. We talk all the time. Yeah, she's actually looking for an Ironman too, so we can kind of train together, like we were doing for the Cape.
You have a certain rhythm.
Yes. Yeah. Kate is someone I don't think I'll ever go without. I think she's definitely part of my life from now on.
Well, this was the adventure of a lifetime, and I respect and admire, and I think I'm also kind of jealous because, oh my gosh, what an incredible accomplishment.
Yes.
But I have to ask you the question you probably hate to get, which is, would you do it again?
Oh gosh. Yeah, if you would have asked me that right after, I obviously would have said no. My partner Kate says hell no. But I don't think I would do the Cape Epic again. Maybe something else similar to the Cape Epic in a different location. I feel like once you've done the Cape, you've done the Cape. And, I don't know if I have it in me to do a repeat of the Cape. Because it is very taxing. And it takes a lot of training and a lot of time. And I don't know if I could imagine doing it without Kate. That would be the toughest thing. Her and I developed something very special on those 8 days of riding together. And I think that was a goal. We all developed our own personal relationships as teammates, but even as a family out there, the crew, the guys who were doing all the recording and the videography, it's just, we were a family. I remember there are certain sections of the race where I would see someone recording and I knew that was our team, and I would just be like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy to see you, because it's like you're seeing family out there.
Yeah. And you'd been relatively isolated for...
Right.
I mean, you spent a lot of time off on your own, or with just your partner, right?
Right.
You mentioned the video crew. Can you talk a little bit about the documentary that's coming out?
Oh, yes. Okay, so Liv Cycling took tons of, they did tons of recording, tons of interviews. A lot of information was taken from this epic adventure that we had. I mean, before the race, during the race, after the race. And they've created a documentary about the Liv Trail Squad. So the first episode, it's a 5 series episode, was released on Freehub Mag a few days ago. September 9th, I believe, 6th.
And I think the videos are on YouTube.
Yes,
right?
They are on YouTube, yes. But they're continuously going to be releasing for the next 6 weeks or so until we get through all the 5 episodes. So I'm interested to see what they're able to put together.
And what kind of screen time you're going to get.
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I want to see some of this screen time that they could pull off from that footage, because it's not very pretty, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
It's a pretty accomplishment. It's awesome, and I congratulate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, it was amazing.
At some point, we're going to get together and talk about what you do for a living. We'll talk about being a nurse practitioner, but you just keep doing all this really interesting stuff that I just would rather talk about this. So.
I was just telling someone the other day, because they asked me, what it's been like since completing the Cape, and I was like, I just did a pre-ride a couple weeks ago, kind of similar climbing, kind of like the Cape distance, and it was hard. I don't, when I think about those days of riding, I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you, but I did, and I had an amazing support crew and an amazing company, Liv Cycling, to support me and several other women along that journey, and they gave us an adventure of a lifetime, basically. And sometimes you really want to say thank you to someone, or for something like that. But how do you do that? I don't know. My goal was to finish the Cape for the opportunity, and I did that. And I just hope it empowers other people to go do something crazy and do something epic. Push themselves to something of that magnitude.
I feel like your accomplishment is a big way of saying thanks. I mean, and if you had gotten close and gotten too sick, I don't think anybody would have said, "Oh, she went and she failed." I should hope not.
No.
But fortunately, you didn't have to worry about that.
Thank goodness. It's just keep pedaling day by day, and that's what we did. And not everyone was able to finish, and those girls, I know they gave it the best that they could, and that's just how it is sometimes. You don't always get to finish, but at least tried.
That is Lisa Land. She is a nurse practitioner at Kingman Pulmonary Associates, and she's an endurance athlete. In February, she finished the Absa Cape Epic mountain bike race. Lisa, thank you so much.
Thank you, TJ. I appreciate you giving me your time.
And that is Focus on Your Health. I'm TJ Lafredo. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can send me an email at foyhradio@gmail.com. That's Focus on Your Health, foyhradio@gmail.com. Happy riding.